Hello, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. You're with us here on the Funeral Channel Network podcast, and I am just so glad you've decided to join us today. We have a topic that I think is going to surprise you a little bit. Usually when we talk about memorials or, remembering someone we've lost, our minds tend to go to the commercial side of things.
Mm-hmm. The transactions.
Exactly. The things we buy, the urns, the polished granite headstones, the little brass plaques. We think about interacting with a funeral director and, picking something out of a catalog. It's a transaction. But today we're rolling up our sleeves. We are digging into the earth. We're talking about the profound, heavy, and surprisingly healing art of the DIY memorial garden stone.
It's such a fascinating pivot, isn't it?
It really is.
Because it completely shifts the dynamic of grief. Instead of being a passive observer, someone who receives a finished product that someone else made.
You're just the customer.
Right. You're the customer. But with this, you become the creator. You become the active agent in the memory. And there's a source we're poring over today that puts this so beautifully. It's a guide called Stone and Soul, a DIY guide to memorial gardens. And right at the beginning, in the introduction, it has this one line that it really stopped me in my tracks.
Oh, yeah.
It says, grief often seeks expression through the hands as much as through words.
Through the hands. Wow. That is such a powerful image. And I think we've all felt that, right? That restless, almost kinetic energy when you're grieving.
Oh, absolutely.
You want to do something, but you don't know what. You can't fix the loss. Death is the one thing you can't fix, so you just feel stuck.
Completely stuck.
And this guide suggests that moving beyond the usual photographs and written tributes, which are great, don't get me wrong, but moving towards something tangible, something heavy, something permanent, like a stone, it actually changes the way we process that loss. It asks us to imagine a quiet corner of a garden, a favorite tree, or, a blooming pathway. And it poses the question, how does a simple stone transform that ordinary space into a personal sanctuary?
And that's the core question, isn't it? And I think to understand the why, we have to look at the world we live in right now.
Okay.
It is a digital world. I mean, so much of our memory keeping is on a screen.
It's on the cloud.
It's a Facebook post, a digital photo album, a text message you saved. And those things are valuable. They connect us, but they are weightless. They don't have mass. They don't have texture. They don't resist you. A stone has gravity. It resists the wind. It sits in the rain. It gets warm in the sun. And when you create a personal sanctuary and you place a stone there, a stone that you have worked on with your own hands, you are anchoring a memory in the physical, living, growing world.
You're making it real.
You're making it real. You're integrating remembrance into the landscape itself.
A personal sanctuary. I just love that phrasing. And that's really the mission of our depth dive today, isn't it?
I think so.
We are going to explore how creating a DIY memorial stone isn't just a craft project. It's not just about saving money or making something that looks cute for the backyard, although, those are perfectly valid reasons.
Sure.
It's fundamentally a psychological ritual. It's about remembrance, healing, and claiming some agency when you feel like you've lost all control.
And we're going to cover the whole spectrum today. We aren't just going to talk about the feelings. We're also going to talk about the physics of it.
The practical stuff.
The practical stuff. We'll talk about the psychology of making and why your brain actually needs this. Then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of choosing between natural river stones or pouring your own concrete and the geology behind that choice.
And the how, I assume.
And how. The actual techniques of engraving, painting, and printing. And crucially, we'll talk about the stewardship of that space.
Stewardship, I like that.
Because once you make the stone, your job isn't done.
Yeah.
You have to take care of it. It becomes a living relationship.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Section 1, the psychology of making. Why do it yourself? I mean, why not just order a nice plaque online and have it delivered?
Yeah.
It would certainly be easier.
It's a lot easier.
But the source, Stone and Soul, it makes a really bold assertion here. It says, crafting a stone is a ritual rather than just a creative exercise. What does that distinction even mean to you?
Oh, it's a vital distinction.
Yeah.
I mean, a creative exercise is usually about the result. It's about, does this look good? Is it pretty? Will people like it?
Right. It's product-oriented.
It's product-oriented. A ritual, on the other hand, is about the process. It's about the intention you pour into every single action. And when we talk about nonverbal processing, we're talking about giving your brain a break.
A break from what?
From thinking.
Yeah.
Mourning is intellectually exhausting. You are constantly thinking, remembering, regretting, planning, dealing with paperwork.
Oh, the paper.
The paperwork is a nightmare. It's a lot of noise. It's a high cognitive load. But when your hands are busy, when you are physically shaping a mold, or carving a letter into a rock, or mixing concrete, your focus shifts. You enter a kind of flow state.
It quiets the noise. It gives your mind a place to rest while your hands do the work.
Precisely. It allows the heart and the subconscious to process the grief in the background. It's a gentler way of mourning.
So you're not just sitting and staring at a wall, actively feeling sad.
Exactly. You aren't staring at a wall. You're focusing on the angle of the chisel or the consistency of the paint. You are focusing on the tactile sensation of the stone, the coolness, the texture, and that gives you a release. It offers a break from that intellectual exhaustion. It's almost meditative, really.
I think that connects so directly to this concept of agency that the source mentions.
Yes.
Because grief, by definition, is something that happens to us. It feels completely uncontrollable.
It is.
Someone is gone, and we couldn't stop it. The world suddenly feels chaotic and random and deeply unfair.
And that feeling of helplessness is one of the hardest parts of loss. We feel like we have no say in our own reality anymore.
Like you're just a victim of circumstance.
Exactly. We are just victims of circumstance. But when you create a memorial stone, you are literally shaping a piece of your reality. You are deciding what the stone looks like. You're deciding what it says. You're deciding where it goes.
It sounds small when you say it like that, but I can feel how big that would be.
It's huge. That act of creating gives the mourner purpose. It gives you a domain, however small, where you are the one in control. You're transforming your sorrow, which is this huge, amorphous, invisible thing.
Right, it has no shape.
It has no shape. And you're turning it into something that has shape and form. You're taking something invisible, grief, and making it visible and solid. You are saying, I can still make a mark on this world. I can create something.
And it's not just a solitary thing, is it? The guide talks a lot about family dynamics and specifically about children. I think this is so important because kids, they just don't always have the words.
They really don't.
They feel the energy in the house, they see the sadness, but they don't know how to express it or where to put it.
They rarely do. And frankly, even we as adults struggle to articulate grief verbally. But for a child, that can be scary and confusing. If you sit a child down and say, tell me how you feel about grandma dying, they might just freeze up.
Oh, for sure. It's too big a question. It's too abstract.
It's way too big. But if you say, hey, we're going to paint this rock for grandma's garden, what color do you think she would like? Should we put a flower on it?
Suddenly it's a project. It's manageable.
It's manageable. And suddenly the floodgates open. You're speaking their language, the language of play and creation.
It's like a side door into the conversation. It takes all the pressure off.
It is. It transforms the experience from a scary, abstract loss into a shared activity with a purpose. Stone and Soul notes that creating a stone together opens conversations that simply wouldn't happen otherwise. It gives the child a job, a role. I am painting the star. I am picking the spot in the garden.
It includes them.
It integrates them into the mourning process. Instead of leaving them on the sidelines, just sort of wondering what is happening, it transforms sorrow into purpose for the whole family. And it validates their grief by letting them physically participate in the memorial.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And, speaking of integrating things, the source mentions that organizations like the funeral program site emphasize this too. It's not just about the funeral service itself. It's about the ongoing support, whether it's a printed program, a digital tribute, or a handcrafted stone. These personalized items are all tools for grief support.
They're anchors.
They are. They're tangible connections to memory that last long beyond the day of the funeral.
Right. It's about continuity. It's about having something to hold on to, literally when the person is gone. The funeral is an event. The stone becomes a presence.
Okay, so if we're sold on the why, the psychology of it, we have to look at the what.
Yeah.
You've decided to do this. You're ready to get your hands dirty, but you need a canvas.
A foundation.
The foundation. Section 2 is all about that, selecting the right stone. And it seems we have two main camps here, according to the text, the natural stones and the concrete stones.
That's a fair way to divide it. Let's start with the natural stones. This is for the person who wants that organic, timeless connection to the earth.
Okay.
The source lists a few specific types, and they each carry their own weight, both physically and symbolically. And geologically, they're very different beasts.
Let's run through them. First up, river stones. When I hear that, I picture these smooth, gray, comforting stones you can hold in your hand.
That's the classic choice. River stones are smooth because they've been tumbled by water for years, decades, maybe centuries. The river has worn away all the rough edges.
There's a metaphor in there.
A huge one. Symbolically, they represent peace and continuity. The water flows, the stone remains, but the sharp edges of pain are softened over time. That's a lovely metaphor for grief itself. Physically, they are great to hold, they are incredibly tactile. But there is a catch.
There usually is.
Because they have survived the river, they are usually the hardest types of stone. They are often granite or have a high quartz content.
Oh, they're tough.
Incredibly tough. That means while they are beautiful and symbolic, they're incredibly difficult to engrave by hand. You aren't going to scratch a river stone with a nail. If you try to use a power tool, the rounded surface can make the bit want to slip off.
So what are they good for?
They're often better for painting or for very small, simple inscriptions where you don't need deep relief.
Okay, that's really good to know before I go out and buy a chisel. What about slate?
Slate is the practical choice for the artist or the writer. Geologically, it's a metamorphic rock that comes from shale, and its key property is that it naturally cleaves into these perfect, flat sheets.
Like a little blackboard.
Exactly like a blackboard. So you have this perfect, dark, flat canvas. If you want to paint a detailed picture or write a longer poem or inscription, slate gives you the surface area to do that.
It feels a bit more formal, maybe.
It does. It feels a bit more formal, a bit more structured, like a tablet waiting to be written on. And it's excellent for shallow engraving because the contrast between the dark surface and the lighter gray interior is really high. It makes the letters pop.
And then the heavy hitter, granite. This is what we usually see in cemeteries.
Granite is the king of durability, no question. It is an igneous rock. It's essentially cooled magma from deep within the earth. It is incredibly hard and dense.
So it lasts.
It symbolizes strength for a reason. If you want a stone that will look exactly the same in 50 years as it does today, granite is your choice. It is extremely weather resistant. It basically laughs at rain and frost.
But for the DIYer?
For the DIYer, granite is tough, literally. You're not going to scratch granite with hand tools easily. You need proper, often powered tools, diamond bits, rotary tools to make a real dent in it. It's a commitment, both in effort and in tooling.
Okay, so on the opposite end of that spectrum, the text mentions limestone.
Right. Limestone is a sedimentary rock. It's made of compressed ancient seashells and marine life. You can sometimes even see tiny fossils in it.
So it's softer.
Much softer. For a beginner who wants to try carving with a chisel for the first time, the old-fashioned classic way limestone is very forgiving. It yields to the tool, it feels warm, it has a nice earthy texture.
There's a trade-off.
A big one. Weather resistance. Limestone is porous. Acid rain can slowly eat away at it. Moss and lichen absolutely love to grow on it. And freezing water can get in and crack it.
So it ages.
It ages. It will weather and change over time. Now, some people love that. They want the stone to look ancient and become part of the landscape. Others might be disappointed if their carefully carved inscription softens a bit over the years.
So if you go natural, you really have to inspect the stone itself. You can't just pick up any old rock.
That's a crucial point. The expert note here in the source is to check for surface flatness and weight stability.
What do you mean by stability?
You don't want a stone that wobbles. If you place it in the garden and it rocks back and forth every time a squirrel jumps on it or you try to clean it, it's going to be really annoying. You want a flat, stable base.
And a flat surface to work on.
Right. You need a surface flat enough to take your design without distorting the words or the image.
Now, let's pivot to the other camp, concrete. The source calls this the most popular DIY material. Why is that? Is it just because it's cheap?
Cost is a big factor, for sure. It is very accessible. You can buy a bag of concrete mix at any hardware store for just a few dollars. But the real magic of concrete is that it's a liquid before it's a solid.
Right, you pour it.
You pour it. That means it is the ultimate customizable canvas. You aren't hunting through a riverbed for hours looking for a heart-shaped rock.
You just buy a heart-shaped mold.
Or make one out of cardboard and tape.
Right.
You control the shape, the size, the thickness completely. It gives you total creative freedom.
That makes a lot of sense. It takes the luck out of finding the perfect stone.
And it gives you consistency. A natural stone might have a hidden crack or a hard vein of quartz running through it that makes engraving difficult or unpredictable. Concrete, if you mix it right, provides a smooth, uniform surface that is specifically optimized for whatever you want to do to it.
And for those who are maybe a little intimidated by mixing cement.
Which is fair. It acts a bit like baking a cake, honestly. It's just water and powder, but you have to get the ratio right. For them, they're precast stones.
Right, the manufactured garden stones, the ones you see in craft stores.
Exactly. These are the beginner-friendly option. They're predictable, they are clean, they come ready to paint or etch. The downside, according to the source, is that they can feel a little less organic.
Less authentic, maybe.
A little. They don't have the geological history of a river stone or the personal touch of a hand-poured one. But for many people, especially when they're grieving and maybe don't have the energy for a big project, the ease of use and the guaranteed smooth surface totally outweighs that.
It just lowers the barrier to entry.
It does. And that's incredibly important.
It's about what works for you and your skill level and your energy level at that moment. Okay, so we have our stone, we've chosen our canvas. Now comes the hard part, the message.
The really hard part.
Section 3, the message, inscriptions, and symbolism. And the host's dilemma here is very real. How in the world do you sum up a life in a few inches of rock?
It is the ultimate writer's block. You feel this immense pressure to be profound, to be perfect.
You want to write an essay, but you have space for a tweet.
Exactly. You want to capture 80 years of life and love and laughter in 3 lines. It feels impossible.
So what does the guide suggest?
It gives some excellent advice here, and it's called the rule of simplicity.
Simplicity carries the most emotional weight. I like that.
It really does. Think about a phrase like, forever in our hearts. It's 4 simple words, but it covers everything. Or, love beyond measure. Always with us.
They work because they're not too specific.
Right. They're open-ended. They don't try to tell a specific story. They express a universal state of being. They allow the person reading it to fill in the blanks with their own personal memories. If you try to get too specific or too wordy, the text gets small, it gets hard to read, and it just loses its impact.
The source also warns about timelessness. This is really interesting. It says, avoid phrases tied to trends or fleeting expressions.
This is so critical.
Yep.
We often use language that is popular right now.
Yes.
Slang, or even just certain ways of phrasing things that feel very modern. But this stone is meant to endure for decades. Imagine looking at a memorial stone from 1970 that used 1970s slang. If it said groovy, for example.
It would feel dated, almost jarring.
It would be jarring. It distracts from the memory. It pulls you out of the moment of remembrance. It makes you think about the era. You want the language to age well.
So stick to the classics.
Stick to the classics. You want it to feel as dignified in 20 years as it does today. The standard elements, the name, the dates, a simple religious reference, terms of endearment like beloved mother, those never go out of style.
But sometimes, words just fail. They aren't enough. Or there just isn't enough room. And that's where symbols come in.
Visual language is incredibly powerful because it bypasses the analytical part of your brain and it goes straight to the emotional center.
You don't have to read it. You just feel it.
You just feel it. You see a heart, you feel love. The source lists some specific imagery that works really well. Nature symbols are huge.
Like what?
Butterflies for transformation and the soul, the idea of changing form from a caterpillar to flight, doves for peace and the Holy Spirit, flowers for beauty and the fragility of life.
And then the emotional ones like hearts or footprints.
Right, and religious symbols like crosses or stars of David.
Oh.
But the key takeaway here isn't just pick a pretty picture. It's that the symbol must align with the personality of the deceased.
That feels important.
It's everything. If the person hated the ocean, don't put an anchor on their stone just because it symbolizes stability. It feels inauthentic. If they were a passionate gardener, a rose or a sunflower is perfect. If they were an astronomer or just a dreamer, maybe a star or a crescent moon.
It brings us back to that collaborative design aspect we touched on earlier. If you're stuck on what symbol to use, ask the family.
Yeah, absolutely. Inclusion and shared remembrance. This is the perfect opportunity. Maybe a grandchild remembers that grandpa always wore a specific type of hat. Maybe you can etch a simple outline of that hat.
Oh, that's so much more personal.
It's so much more intimate and meaningful than a generic symbol. It makes the stone truly theirs. And letting relatives contribute ideas for words or symbols, it fosters that sense of connection. It turns the design process into a storytelling session about the person you lost.
I love that idea. Okay, let's get technical. We've got the stone, we've got the design. Now, section 4. Putting hands to stone. The actual techniques. How do we do this?
The fun part.
The source outlines 4 main methods. Let's start with the classic approach. Technique A, hand engraving.
This is the old school way. This is for the person who wants to feel the effort, to really connect with the stone physically. You need a chisel, specifically a stone chisel with a hardened carbide tip and a hammer.
And safety gear.
Non-negotiable. Safety goggles and gloves, please. Do not skip those. Rock shards are sharp and they fly incredibly fast.
And a lot of patience, I assume.
Oh, loads of it. The vibe here is authentic and permanent. but the process highlights from the source are really important. And the first one is screamed in capital letters. Practice on scrap stone first.
I can just imagine ruining the main stone on your first swing would be absolutely heartbreaking.
It happens. You need to get a feel for how the stone chips. Does it flake off in little pieces? Does it crumble? Every stone has a grain, almost like a piece of wood. You have to learn to work with it.
Any other tips for this method?
Yes. Use stencils. Don't try to freehand the lettering. Unless you are an incredibly talented calligrapher. Tape a stencil down, trace it, and then chisel along the lines.
And go slow.
Very slow. And keep the inscription shallow. You don't need to dig a tunnel into the rock. You just need to break the surface to create contrast and shadow. If you go too deep too fast, you risk cracking the entire stone.
Okay, that sounds intense, but also really rewarding. What about for the person who is a bit more power tool oriented? Technique B, power tools or etching?
Right. This method uses a rotary tool, something like a Dremel, with a specialized bit, usually diamond or silicon carbide. This is for the comfortable with tools demographic.
And what's the benefit here?
The benefit is control and detail. You can hold it like a pen, you can do cursive script, you can do detailed drawings that you could never, ever do with a hammer and chisel.
And it's faster, I'm guessing?
Much faster. It works really well on those harder stones like river rocks or granite, where a chisel might just bounce right off.
But safety is still a major concern.
Even more so, in some ways. Stone dust is not something you want to breathe in. It often contains silica, which is very damaging to your lungs. You have to wear a good dust mask.
And eye protection.
Eye protection is mandatory. And often, it helps to keep the stone surface wet while you grind it. A little trickle of water keeps the dust down and also keeps the tool bit cool so it lasts longer.
Okay, moving on to technique C painting, the artistic approach.
This is where you can bring in color. You can paint a sunset. You can paint a portrait of a beloved pet. You use outdoor acrylic paints, which are designed to be more durable.
And this one is more accessible.
Very accessible. Kids can do it easily. It allows for a ton of personal expression. But there's a catch.
There's always a catch.
The catch is longevity. Paint sits on top of the stone. Engraving sits in the stone. Paint will fade. It will chip. It will peel.
So it's high maintenance?
This method requires the most maintenance. You absolutely must seal it properly, and you will likely have to touch it up or reseal it every few years. Nature hates paint and will try to remove it.
Finally, technique D imprinting, the concrete special. I think this one is just fascinating because it only works with concrete.
It's unique to wet concrete. You have a window of time, maybe 30 minutes to an hour after you pour it, where the concrete is the consistency of firm clay or wet sand.
And you can press things into it.
You can press the memory directly into it before it hardens.
Like handprints.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The source mentions using actual finger impressions or footprints.
Yeah.
Imagine a memorial for a child with their actual handprint pressed into the stone forever.
Wow.
Or using letter stamps to press the name in so it looks like it was professionally cast. You can even press in meaningful objects, shells from a favorite beach, decorative glass, small pebbles.
So the memory is literally embedded.
Literally embedded.
Yeah.
But you have to work while it's wet. Once that concrete starts to set, the opportunity is gone. It captures a specific moment in time and creates this beautiful, durable relief texture.
It really emphasizes that snapshot in time feeling. So you've done all this work, you've made this beautiful thing, now you have to put it out in the world. Section 5, resilience. The battle against the elements.
And it really is a battle. Nature is relentless. Rain, sun, frost, time.
Yeah.
They're all trying to break your stone down.
This is the reality check part of the process.
It is. The reality check is that if you just throw a painted rock in the garden without any protection, it will look terrible in 6 months. It'll be bleached by the sun and eroded by the rain.
So sealants are non-negotiable.
Absolutely non-negotiable. And you need a sealant specifically designed for outdoor stone or concrete, not just a clear craft spray from the art store.
What should you look for?
It needs to do 3 things: prevent moisture penetration, block UV fading, and stop surface erosion.
Why is moisture such a big deal? I mean, it's a rock. Rocks get wet all the time.
It's because of the freeze-thaw cycle. This is simple physics, but it's incredibly destructive.
Okay, break it down.
If water gets into the microscopic pores of the stone or concrete, and then the temperature drops below freezing, that water turns to ice. When water freezes, it expands by about 9%.
Which doesn't sound like a lot.
But it exerts massive pressure from the inside out. That's what causes cracking, flaking, and something called spalling, where the whole face of the stone can just pop right off.
And a sealant stops that.
A good sealant stops the water from getting in the first place. It makes the surface hydrophobic, so water beads up and rolls off instead of soaking in.
And the maintenance isn't a one-and-done thing?
Not at all. You need to reapply it every 1 to 3 years, depending on your climate. It's part of the stewardship we talked about. A good rule of thumb is if you see water soaking into the stone instead of beating up on the surface, it's time to reseal.
What about placement? Can I just put it anywhere?
You can, but you shouldn't if you want it to last. Strategic placement matters a lot.
So, no shady, wet spots.
Avoid low areas. If you put the stone in a little divot where water pools every time it rains, you are just asking for trouble. That's the wet feet problem. It accelerates erosion and algae growth.
So you want it on high, stable ground.
You want the ground to be level and stable. And consider partial shading. If a painted stone sits in direct, baking sunlight for 12 hours a day, the UV damage will be intense. A little shade from a fern or a tree can really help preserve it.
The source also lists some common pitfalls. Let's do a quick fire round on these mistakes to avoid.
Let's do it. Number 1.
Using non-weatherproof markers or paint. A regular Sharpie will turn purple and disappear in the sun in a few weeks. Don't use them. Use oil-based paint markers or proper outdoor acrylics.
Number 2.
Choosing stones that are too soft for your environment. Avoid chalky sandstone for very wet climates. They will literally dissolve over time.
Number 3.
Overcrowding the text. If you try to write a novel on a small rock, no one will be able to read it. Less is more. Keep it legible from a few feet away.
And the last one.
Skipping the sealing step. We've covered that, but seriously, don't skip it. It's the difference between a memorial that lasts a year and one that lasts a decade or more.
Okay, we've got the stone. It's sealed. We know where to put it. Now let's zoom out.
The bigger picture. Section 6. The living context. Creating the memorial space. The expert view here is that the stone is the centerpiece, but the environment is the sanctuary.
Right. A stone sitting by itself in a patch of dirt is fine. It works. But a stone sitting amongst flowers, with a bench nearby and a wind chime singing in the breeze, that's an experience.
It's about creating a destination.
It is. We are talking about creating a space that invites you to stay, to linger, to reflect.
What are some of those complementary elements the source suggests?
Sensory additions are huge. Grief is a full-body experience, so the memorial space should engage the senses.
Sound, for example.
Wind chimes add sound. A gentle, soothing background noise that breaks the silence. It makes the air feel alive. Memorial candles, if you have a sheltered area or a lantern, add light and warmth and a focal point.
And infrastructure.
Infrastructure. Put a bench there. It's such a simple thing, but it's so important. If you want people to reflect, you need to give them a place to sit. If there's nowhere to sit, you'll look at the stone for 10 seconds and walk away. A bench is an invitation. It says, stay a while. Be here with this memory.
And the gardening itself is a form of remembrance.
It is. Planting is an act of hope. It's a promise to the future. You plant a bulb in the fall, trusting that it will bloom in the spring. The source specifically recommends choosing perennials. These are plants that come back year after year.
Why perennials specifically over annuals?
Because they mirror the endurance of memory. Annuals are beautiful for one season, and then they die, and you have to replant them. Perennials might go dormant, they might look dead in the winter, but the roots are alive, and they return.
That's a powerful cycle.
That cycle of life, death, and rebirth is incredibly comforting in a memorial space. It reminds you that even when things seem gone, they can return in a new form. And it means the garden is alive, just like the love is alive. You can adapt the space for holidays, anniversaries.
We also need to touch on the ethical and environmental considerations here. The leave no trace mentality.
Yes, this is so vital. Do not take your beautiful handmade memorial stone and place it in a national park or on public land without permission.
It might seem like a nice gesture.
It might seem like a lovely gesture, but it disrupts the natural landscape. It's technically littering, even if it's beautiful litter. Keep these stones in your private garden or in designated memorial spaces.
And be mindful of the materials.
Use environmentally safe materials. Don't use paints with heavy metals or sealants that will leach toxic chemicals into the soil.
It's a philosophical point, isn't it? Sustainable practices honor both the memory of the person and the environment they now rest in.
Exactly. You don't want your tribute to be a pollutant. You want it to be in harmony with the earth.
This brings us to our final section, Section 7, the ongoing relationship. And I think this is maybe the most profound part, the difference between interaction and storage.
It's a huge difference. Think about a funeral urn. For many people, it sits on a high shelf or in a closet. You might look at it, but you don't really interact with it. It's static.
Or a photo album.
A photo album is stored in a drawer. You have to make a conscious choice to take it out and engage with it. But a garden stone, it invites regular interaction.
Because it's just there in your life.
It's there. You have to weed around it. You have to sweep the leaves off it in the fall. You have to water the plants next to it. You might have to wipe the bird droppings off it.
That ritual of maintenance.
Yes. And that maintenance is the connection. You are caring for the memory by caring for the space. It gives you a reason to visit every day. It gives you a moment of quiet pause in your day.
You mentioned a quote earlier from the source. Grief is not linear.
It comes in waves.
It does. It can hit you out of nowhere. And having a physical anchor in your daily life, something you see when you take out the trash or walk the dog, it reminds you that the person is still part of your world.
It integrates the loss into your living reality. It's not something hidden away in a box. It's part of your landscape.
And speaking of integration, the source mentions how the stone fits into the wider ecosystem of mourning. Things like funeral programs, guest books, all those digital tributes.
Right. It connects back to that idea of creating a consistent narrative of remembrance. You might take a line from a poem that was read at the service and printed in the funeral program, and again, referencing the funeral program site. They have vast resources for this kind of text. And you might use that same line on the stone. So the paper program you hold in your hands at the service and the heavy stone you sit by in the garden, they speak the same language. They tell the same story.
It ties everything together and makes the memorialization feel whole and complete.
Precisely.
Well, we have covered a lot of ground today. I mean, from the riverbed to the hardware store, from the psychology of grief to the chemistry of concrete.
It's been quite a journey.
To recap, I think the core insight here is that this is an act of love and resilience. You are taking the raw material of the earth and the raw emotion of your grief, and you are forging them into something beautiful and permanent.
And you're doing it with your own two hands. That agency, that ritual, is where the healing begins. It's not just about the finished rock. It's about the hours you spent making it. It's about the sweat and the dust and the intention you poured into it.
As we wrap up, I want to leave you with the final thought from the source, Stone and Soul. It concludes with this image, and it's perfect. In the stillness of a garden, beneath open skies, a memorial stone reminds us that while life changes, love remains.
That's beautiful.
And for you listening, I want to challenge you a little. Whether you are grieving right now or just looking for a way to ground yourself in this chaotic world, consider what kind of sanctuary you could create. What creates that sense of place for you? Or maybe, how could you help a friend create one? Sometimes showing up with a bag of concrete and a listening ear is the very best support you can give.
That's a great thought to end on.
Thank you for diving deep with us today on the Funeral Channel Network podcast. We'll catch you on the next one.